Welcome, welcome, everyone. You all have been on webinars before, so you know how these things go, right? We got folks that are logging in a little bit late. They got to sit down, get situated, all of that. So we're going to get started in about 2 minutes. In the meantime, though, if you're already here, we would love to hear from you. We'd love to know first, what is your MO? That's your four-digit Kolbe result. So as an example, I'm a 5392, or Christine is a 6772. So we want to hear, what are your four numbers? And then the other thing we would love to hear is, how did you hear about Kolbe? So again, while we're waiting to get started, feel free to pop that in the chat, and we would love to hear from you. And of course, we know that part of the reason why you're joining this webinar is you have questions. I promise we're going to answer as many as we can. And I actually looked through your questions as I was putting together the presentation today. So I may cover some of them. If I don't cover all of them, that's totally okay. Christine is here and she's taking care of the chat. She is also one of our senior consultants. And so she is going to, go as quickly as she can typing up answers to help all of you. But we are going to have a Q&A session at the end where we're opening up and we're going to simply just answer as many questions as we can, because our goal for both myself and Christine, as well as us as Kolbe as an organization, is to help you learn more about your strengths and use them in a way that's important to you. Based on the topic, I'm guessing you're trying to figure out, what are the strengths of my child, or I know what my child's strengths are and how do I use them. I 100% promise that we are going to cover that topic and I will answer most of your questions on that. All right, so I see, we got Esther's here, 4394, awesome. Carolyn, she heard about us, learn about it at work. She learned about Kolbe. Nice. Same thing with Lisa. Previous job told her about Kolbe. Fantastic, and welcome everyone. All right. So we want to be respectful of your time, even though, like I said, we know how these public webinars work and folks show up a little bit late. So let's call this our 30-second countdown. So in 30 seconds, Christine and I are going to go ahead and get started. But in the meantime, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear first, what are your four Kolbe numbers? And then second, how did you hear about us? There we go. Maria read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Love Robert Kiyosaki. Calvin was at a conference. All right. Scott, 5293. Fantastic result. There we go. We got lots of folks. Heard about us through email. Met's a 6743-8622. So as you probably noticed, as you look through the MOs of the attendees, we're all over the place, right? We got some folks who are 789 in Fact Finder, some folks who are 123, and everywhere in between. Fantastic. That means we have lots of different strengths here on the call. And here's what I can tell you is, whether you're a grown up or you're a kid, the people around you are going to have varying strengths, and that's totally okay. That's actually part of what makes them amazing, is those strengths that they have locked inside of them. And so really my goal today is to help you unlock your own strengths and unlock the strengths of those kids that you work with, those kids that are in your life, whether they're children, grandchildren, the kids that you coach, or they're in, you're a youth pastor or something like that, and you work with kids. All of those kids have these amazing strengths. And so we got to figure out, how do we help those children unleash them into the world? So I'm going to be your host today. I'm Eric, and I'm a 5392, as you can see on the screen there. And for some of you, I know you know what that means. But for many of you on this call, you don't really know what the heck those colorful bars mean and what the numbers mean. That's totally okay. We're actually going to start the session today with just a quick debrief of, what the heck does Kolbe measure? What do the colorful bars mean? What do the numbers mean? Then we're going to move into, all right, how do we help these kids in our lives use those strengths? If we know their four numbers, how do we get them to use those in a way so they can be happy, healthy, more productive, all of that fun stuff? And then we're going to wrap the day up with just an open Q&A. We're going to let you all type in your questions, and Christine, myself, and maybe some other Kolbe folks are going to join us, and we're going to answer as many as we can. So as we go through this, again, please feel free to chat. Christine is one of our senior consultants. She can answer all of your questions. So chat them into her. She will do her best to get to as many of them as we can. But before we really jump into the content, I'm going to pause and I'm going to start a quick poll. And what I want to understand is what's your relationship with the kids in your life? Are you their parents or their guardians, grandparents, teachers, coaches, or are you a kid or a teen yourself? And what this helps me do is kind of tweak the content just a little bit. If we see, hey, most of the folks are in this bucket, then I'll adjust some of the examples that I'm going to use. All right, so we're going to give it, let's call it another 15 seconds. And then Kolbe Training, aka D, is going to close out the poll and we'll share the results with you. All right. I think it's been about 15 seconds, so we're going to close that out. And as you can see, right, the majority of folks on this call are parents, right? Your parents are guardians. And so you have a child probably in your home and you're trying to figure out, right, what is that? What are those child's strengths and how do I help those kids use it? That's our goal today. We're absolutely going to help you do that. So I live in Central Texas and I live about 45 minutes from Lady Bird Lake. And so when I was looking up quotes, I came across this one. I was like, yes, I have to use this. So Lady Bird Johnson was a former First Lady of the United States. And her quote is, children are likely to live up to what you believe of them. Right. So if you believe, you know what, my child's not very good in school or they're not very good in sports or something like that, they probably won't be. But if you think in your head and you believe my child can be amazing at school, can be amazing in sports or in band or dance or whatever their thing is, they probably can. The grown-up version of this is think of Henry Ford, right? Henry Ford says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. It's absolutely just as true for our kids and what we believe in them. So just know all of our kids have a whole bunch of strengths locked inside of them, and grown-ups too. We actually all have this secret sauce that's a combination of all of our unique strengths. And to kind of simplify it, if you want to think of it as we all have three buckets of strengths, it makes it a little bit easier. But we all have thinking or cognitive strengths. Then we all have feeling or affective strengths. And then finally, we have the conative or the doing strengths. And what I know about all of us and about our kids is they have all of these strengths as well. And we're all at our best when we get to use all of those strengths. And so I'm going to decode what each of these strengths means in just a second. So if we think about the cognitive or the thinking strengths, those are things like our natural intelligence, skills, education, experiences that we've had over time. All of us have varying degrees of those strengths. So we all have cognitive strengths. And all of us have taken some kind of cognitive assessment, right? If you have a kid that's getting ready for college, they're probably taking the SAT or the ACT or the SAT. If you have maybe someone who's a little bit older, they're looking at grad school, maybe they're going to take something like the GMAT, or maybe they're going to take some version of a intelligence test like the Wonderlic. Or I remember when I was a kid, I had to take those Scantron fill in the bubble tests. And every time I colored one in and then I tried to erase it and change the answer, I still got it wrong because I didn't really do a great job of erasing it. But the teacher was trying to figure out, did Eric pay attention in class? Did he learn the stuff I was trying to teach him over the past couple of days or weeks, something like that? All of us take cognitive assessments. Even typing skills tests are a version of cognitive assessments. But there's just one bucket of strengths that we have, right? We have three buckets of strengths. The next bucket of strengths are things like the affective part of the mind or the feeling part. Motivation lives there. Values live there. Personality lives there, right? You probably have some kids that are really, really extroverted, right? And they're talking to everybody. They have lots and lots of words. And some of you may have some kids that are a little bit more introverted. They're a little bit more reserved, right? And it takes some time to get them to warm up. Both of those are amazing strengths. We just need to know the strengths that our kids have. And there are lots of assessments out there in the world to help this figure this stuff out for yourself or for your kids when they get old enough. Things like Strengths Finder, Predictive Index, Myers-Briggs, DISC, Working Genius. There are thousands and thousands of assessments out there in the affective part of the mind. And so by the time we're adults, most of us know these strengths that we have. But there's this third part, and it's called the conative or the doing part of our mind. Most of us aren't really aware of it because we just do it. And we've actually been doing this stuff since we were little kids on the playground. Now that we're grown-ups, we're doing it. When we decide to retire and hang out with the grandkids or play golf, we're still going to do things in a particular way. That's the conative part of the mind. And that's what we focus on at Kolbe. So while your kids have lots of strengths locked inside of them, the only ones that we can actually identify is how they naturally get stuff done. Other interesting things to know about the conative part of the mind is it only kicks in when you're striving. So if, let's say, you and your son are hanging out on a Sunday watching a football game, you're probably not striving. But if you're building a new treehouse, you're putting together a bike, something like that, both of you are striving to get that thing done. That's when your conative strengths are going to come into play. Other things to know, right? It's about problem solving. How do we solve the problems in front of us? And as grown-ups, sometimes we have really big, complicated problems that we have to solve. But to kids, their problems are big and complicated because they've never faced it before. And so by getting them to lean into these strengths, you're going to help them overcome those challenges that they're going to see. But again, the conative part of the mind is all about how you will take action, how your kids will take action. How do we measure it? With grown-ups, we have them take the Kolbe A. With kids, we have them take the Kolbe Y. Now, while the assessments that you take are a little bit different, they're measuring the same part of the human, right? We're trying to figure out whether it's this little human or this grown-up human, we're trying to figure out how do they naturally get stuff done. And so when you go online and you take that assessment, we're identifying your MO, how you naturally problem solve or get things done when taking purposeful action, when you're striving. And so every result you ever see is going to have those same four colorful bars. The red one, the blue one, the green one, and the yellow one. Every result will have those because those are the four problem-solving methods that all people have. But then we all also have numbers. And those numbers go on a scale from 1 to 10. Just keep this in mind. It's not that a 10 is better than a 1 or a 1 is better than a 10. We're just trying to figure out where do your particular strengths fall, whether you're a child or you're a grown-up or somewhere in between. And so we all have those same four colorful bars and we have four numbers. Wherever your four numbers fall, that's your natural way of getting stuff done. So in that red one called Fact Finder, if you have a 3, your natural way of solving problems is by simplifying. If you have a 9 in that red one called Fact Finder, then you naturally research and everywhere in between. And again, it's not that one is better than another. We just got to figure out where are your particular strengths. Something else critical to know about your conative strengths, you can flex them, right? If let's say you're a 2 in Fact Finder and your strength is simplifying, can you research? 100%, absolutely you can. But if you do that all day, every day, you're going to be drained. You're going to be exhausted at the end of the day and just, zone out and watch Netflix or something like that. And so wherever your four numbers fall, that's you at your best. That's you leaning into your strengths. All right. So I mentioned that red one called the Fact Finder. And Fact Finder is all about gathering and sharing information on a scale from 1 to 10. So those of us who have kids that are in that 7 to 10 range, you naturally do research. If you're a little bit older, maybe you read a blog article or you open up an instruction manual and you read through it, something like that. And that's how you do your research. Kids probably ask Alexa or they ask Grok or something like that. But either way, they still need to do that research. They need to gather the information in order to solve that problem. Then there are other folks in that 1 to 3 range, still gather info. They just do it in a very different way. They take a step back and their gift is they're able to focus on the bottom lines, and condense data or simplify solutions. So let's say you give your child, right, a really thick book. This one is like 700 and something pages. And I would say that all kids need to be reading big books, right? What doesn't matter who the author is, but they need to be reading books, right? It's good for them, helps them learn all of that stuff. That kid that's a 7 through 10 can probably give you the verbal version of a 10-page report on what happened in that book. You get a 1, 2, or 3, even though it's this many pages, the book is this thick, they're probably going to boil it down to a sentence or two to tell you what happened in that book. Just different strengths, and both are equally as amazing. Then we have folks in that 4, 5, and 6 range, like myself, like Christine. Our gift is we're able to pull out the most critical pieces, right? The 3, 4, maybe 5 really important factors that happen in this giant, really thick book there. So again, fact finder 1, 5, 10, anywhere in between, all of those are strengths. It's all about how you gather and share information. The next one, the blue one, called follow through. Kind of two parts to follow through. One is, creating systems and plans and those types of things. And the other part is bringing things to closure. So those of you grown-ups that have a 7 through 10 in follow through, you naturally create step-by-step guides. I got to do this, then this, then this, then this. There are little ones that do that as well. They may not, they may not express it in the same way, but they build little plans inside of their head. They also have this strong need to make sure that things get accomplished, right? Checked off the virtual to-do list or checklist. That's an amazing gift, but you can imagine that this could be challenging, let's say around lunchtime or around bedtime, where, hey, it's time to go to bed, but I'm in the middle of this thing. I need to get it done, right? That can be challenging as a parent because you understand the needs that your child has, but they also still need to sleep, right? All of us need to sleep. So that's a strength in that 7 to 10 range. On the other end, those of us in that 1, 2, or 3 range, we find shortcuts. We cut things down, right? For me, if you put a 5-step process in front of me, I'm going to cut it down to 2 or 3 steps. And also, we actually thrive when we vary the approach. We kind of mix up how we get these things done. And we need to be flexible. When stuff goes wrong, and now we're going this way instead of that way, we actually thrive in that kind of environment, and our children can as well, right? These are the kind of kids that don't really need a plan. They're just going to go in there, and based on what happens, they're going to react. And then we have those folks in that middle range, that 4, 5, and 6 zone, where their gift is they take a look at what's already built, what's already created, and they can naturally just figure out, how do I make this thing a little bit faster? How do I make it a little bit simpler, a little bit easier, right? Whether it's a plan, a process, a system, their gift is making the machine work that much better. And again, 1, 5, 10, all of those are strengths. Later on, I'm going to show you how to use those strengths. All right, that next one, the green one, called quick start. It's about dealing with risk and uncertainty. Those of us in that 7 to 10 range, like myself, like Christine, we just try stuff to see what happens. Let's go for it and see what happens if I try this. What happens if I try this? If you've ever picked up one of those science kits as a kid or with your child, right? And they have a couple of chemicals, and in this experiment, you're supposed to mix this and that. And then in this other experiment, you're supposed to mix this other thing and that other thing. Well, the kids in that 7 to 10 range are probably in their head or actually doing it, figuring out, what happens if I mix these two together, even though they're in different experiments, right? That's just one of the ways that they naturally problem solve. They just got to try it to see what happens. Then on the other side, folks in that 1, 2, and 3 range, they spot some of the natural downsides. Ooh, I could get hurt if I jump out of this tree head first, right? They naturally spot some of those things. They also tend to take a look and say, hey, what have I been doing that's working? Because if I keep doing that, it'll probably keep me safe. It'll probably keep me, being successful. Again, grown-ups, kids, we all have these strengths. Then we have the folks in the middle, that 4, 5, and 6 range. And what they do is they take a look at stuff, and they're going to do a little bit of homework. As they're doing their homework, they realize, you know what? I think I can pull that off. Then yeah, they're going to go for it. But if as they're doing that homework, they realize, well, this one's a little too risky, so I'm going to pause. I'm probably not going to do that thing. All right, then we have that last strength, the yellow one called implementer. Think of implements, a hammer, a screwdriver, a surgeon's scalpel, those kinds of things, right? It's the interacting with the physical world. There are some kids, some grown-ups that have that 7 to 10 strength where they need to build, construct, put things together. They need to touch it, taste it, smell it, and also they need to demonstrate solutions. These are the kind of kids that, build machines, technology. They're, constantly putting stuff together. Could be, simple Legos like this and constructions like that, or as they get older, maybe they're building their own treehouse or their own go-kart or something like that. These folks, right, again, they need to use their hands in order to problem solve. On the other end, that 1, 2, or 3 range, we work in an intangible world. We actually don't need to touch it, taste it. Someone tells us something, on a phone call, over video, something like this, we can start to get the picture in our head of what that person is talking about. Again, we don't need to hold it in our hands. And then with those folks in the middle, that 4, 5, and 6 range, their gift is they kind of bridge the gap between the two worlds. So as you're describing something to them, they're starting to see that picture in their head. But what they're also starting to do is translate that into, how do I build this thing? What materials am I going to need to put that tree house together, to, fix my bike brakes or something like that? And they also have a really cool knack for fixing stuff that's broken, right? If they have a problem with their bike brakes, they're going to tinker around and figure out how to get them to, tighten back on the caliper, those types of things. So you can go way more in depth on the Kolbe strengths. This was definitely just a high level overview, but I wanted to give you all a baseline understanding of what the 4 colorful bars mean and what the numbers mean. Christine, before I jump forward, are there any questions that we need to tackle as a group?
No, we're all good.
All right, awesome. So now we're gonna move into the fun part, right? The fun part is the application. How do we actually help our kids unlock their instinctive strengths? Because all of them have something amazing inside of them. We just got to figure out how do we get it out. So I have an exercise for all of us. What I would like all of you to do is grab something to write with and either a piece of paper or a tablet that you can write on. So I'll give you a second to go ahead and grab that. All right. We all now have our pens or our tablets and we're ready to go. What I would like all of you to do is print your first and your last name. All right. Now, what I would like you to do is if you're right-handed, put that pen in your left hand. Or if you're left-handed, put it in your right hand. Do the exact same thing. Print your first and your last name just below where you wrote it previously. All right. So obviously we're not all on camera, so I'm not gonna be able to see your results, but it probably looks something like this, right? Where first time through, not that bad. Second time through, it looks like a kindergartner wrote it, right? Yeah, there you go. We can see Christine's in the same boat as me. Looks good the first time, second time, it's a little iffy. So I've done this in real life, live with people, and I've also done it online. And every single time, what I can tell you is when people are writing with the opposite hand, they lean over more. They scrunch their forehead up a little bit more because it's a little bit stressful. It's not crazy stressful, right? But it's a little bit stressful to write your name with the opposite hand. This happens to our kids too, right? They have to do things that don't line up with their strengths. And so it's a little bit stressful for them. And sometimes the stress actually comes from us as parents, right? Because we love them and we want to help them be successful or avoid some challenges. And so we give them what we think is really good advice. But what I can tell you is what's good advice for one person is actually terrible advice for someone else. We actually have a phrase in Kolbe that we use. It's called good advice gone bad. So These are just, some typical pieces of advice that we often give our kids or ourselves. Have a plan. For someone like Christine, who has a 7 in follow through, that is amazing advice. And Christine, part of her role at Kolbe is actually building plans for giant projects, right? And so she's amazing at that. That lines up with her talents really, really well. Now, me, can I build a plan? Yeah, I absolutely can build a plan, but you're not going to get the best Eric from having Eric build out the plan. My plan is, I don't know, we're roughly going that way, and I'm going to figure it out as we go. That's my plan. So, again, if you understand this about your kids, you can avoid giving them some of these, bad pieces of advice. Another tip, right? Don't wait till the last minute. We probably give this to our kids about their homework or their, science projects and stuff like that. For a good number of kids, that's probably good advice. For myself or Christine, that's actually not very good advice. We thrive in an environment where we're doing things at the last minute. We have that sense of urgency. Another one, right? Just go with the flow and see what happens. For me, fantastic. I can go with the flow. I can do that a little bit. For other folks, not having a plan, not having a where are we going next, it makes them anxious. You can literally see them start to move around and get uncomfortable and squirm in their chair when you give them advice like just go with the flow. Or this one, right? Finish what you start. Lots of parents, lots of coaches, lots of teachers give this advice to kids. It's probably decent advice if we're talking about your schoolwork, things at, the office, that kind of stuff. It's not always good advice. What if a book is terrible and it doesn't matter? It's not for a book report. Should you finish it just because you're supposed to finish everything you start? Probably not. Go find a better book that will help you more, or, learn more for it or something like that. So there are tons of, pieces of advice that we give to kids as parents and coaches and tutors and all of that stuff. Just keep in mind, you need to know what that kid's strengths are. Otherwise, you may be pushing them in the wrong direction. The way to really unleash their strengths and really help them is to lean into their strengths, right? And if I know, right, this child has a 3.287, to unlock their superpowers, I got to let them be a 3.287. That's how I get the most out of them. That's how they're going to thrive. So it sounds really easy. It sounds amazing. In practice, it's challenging, right? And so we got to figure out how do we actually do this stuff on more of a tactical level. So my best advice to you is one drop at a time. If you try to do it all at once, you're going to overwhelm your kids. We've done it with adults and we overwhelm adults doing it. So just one little piece at a time. One great thing to do is look for times when they use their strengths, point it out, praise them for that. If you have a child that's a 9 in fact finder and they come to you and they just finished reading this book that's 700 something pages, and they also give you the background on the author and where they grew up and where they went to school and other books that they've written, that's them using their research strength, that 7 through 10 in fact finder. Point it out, let them know that's amazing and they're using it. Another thing, right? Praise them for using their strengths, for giving the effort of using their strengths, even if it doesn't work out. You know what? If your kid wins the gold medal, right? If they get the trophy, they win the game. Of course, you're going to be like, hey, great job, right? Everyone's going to do that. But even if they don't win, even if they don't get the gold medal, but they use their strengths, encourage that portion of it. Hey, I know it was rough. You didn't get the results you were looking for. You didn't win the game. But I noticed in the third quarter, you used your follow through strength and you're really following the plan that the coach laid out. Something like that. All right. Discuss frustrations. We're all going to have frustrations. It's part of life. Whether you're grown up, whether you're a kid, you're going to be frustrated at some point. But let's reframe it, right? Let's say, all right, how do we use that frustration in a positive way? Oh, you don't like that you lost? What can we do different next time, right? Or how do we use your strengths to come up with a plan to beat that team next time? Other things, right? Share what works or doesn't work with yourself. So, as I mentioned, right, if I try to build out a 15-step process, I 100% can do that, but it's not my best. So instead, I come up with shortcuts and I find, more condensed ways to get things done. So share that with how you use your own strengths with the kids in your life. Other ways, right? Help them find purpose in what they do. And this isn't just a conative thing. It's not just a Kolbe thing. It's a for all people thing, right? Whether you're a grown up or a kid, you want to know that what you're doing has meaning, it has purpose, right? And so if you can show them the impact they're having in the world or how this can help them when they grow up, something like that, you're adding purpose to the things that they're doing. But again, right? Whether you understand everything about Colby or you're brand new, at some point you're gonna, there's gonna be some friction. It's not gonna work as well as you thought, and maybe your child's gonna be a little stressed. That's okay. Here are some of the warning signs to look out for, right? If your child starts saying, "That's boring," dig into it more. Is it actually boring? Or is it that it doesn't line up with their strengths or the teacher's not communicating in a way that works with them? Sometimes stuff is boring. Sometimes we have to power through. Other times, let's see if we can find a way to accomplish that in a slightly different method. I don't like my teacher. Again, maybe the teacher just does things in a very different way. I'm dumb, right? As far as I know, and all the research I've done, intelligence is not set at birth. And so, if you hear a kid say this, help them. Help them learn more in a way that can lean into their strengths so they can become the expert at whatever it is that you're trying to help them with or whatever it is that they want to do. They absolutely can learn more, right? If you're around kids, they're sponges, they absorb everything. You can teach them so many things. They are absolutely not dumb. Now, other things to look out for, right? Having a bad attitude, shutting down, fear, fatigue, frustration. All of these are just little warning signs that can kind of tip you off to say, hey, I need to jump in here and I need to help them lean into their strengths. And there's some other things that you can do to help with stress as well. Because kids have stress, teens have stress, grown-ups have stress. It's part of life. We're all going to have it. So acknowledge it is stressful, it is frustrating. Hey, I know that trying to pick the right college is stressful. I know that trying to win the championship is stressful or frustrating, or trying to get through this book is stressful. That's okay. But when you're a grown-up, you're going to have stressors as well. Let's figure out how do we maybe do that in a slightly different way to reduce that stress. And as you get better at this, you can anticipate what's going to cause them stress. Other things, give them a permission slip. What we mean by this is there is very rarely one way to accomplish something. Almost never is there only one way to accomplish something. So if you give your child a permission slip to say, hey, I just need this from you, I'm giving you permission to take any path you want to get to that thing. It kind of leads and it's connected to the next one. It's just figure out how to do it differently, right? If your kid is, kind of metaphorically banging their head against the wall, they're kind of stuck with a problem. See if they can take a different path under, around, through that obstacle to get to the same solution, to get to that answer. And get help from others. All of us need help at some point. And I say this when I'm working with teams that are, full of grown-ups and executives and that kind of stuff. All of us are amazing at something, but none of us are amazing at everything. And so it's okay to lean on other people. Other people have other amazing strengths that can absolutely help you. So get help from others. But, right, we know this as parents, helping kids can be hard. Helping grown-ups can be hard too, right? But, as people, right, sometimes we frustrate each other, whether because, one of us is in a bad mood or because we do things in such a very different way. If you live with someone, at some point you frustrated that other person and they frustrated you. It's okay. Just understand that's going to happen. Sometimes there are communication breakdowns, right? Where your kid says something to you and you're like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And it's not a they don't, they're too young to speak clearly thing. It's a the way that they configure their words doesn't quite make sense. Or vice versa. Sometimes when we think we're giving them great advice or this great pep talk, they're staring at us blankly because they don't know what we're talking about. Communication sometimes breaks down. And then just know, right, there's the potential for conflict. And often where we see the kind of greatest potential for conflict is with two people who are wildly different. So these are two real people. This is me and my dad. So whether you're certified in Kolbe or not, you can look at those two graphs and see they're almost a 180 from each other, right? We are very, very different in how we get stuff done. First one is in that blue one called follow through. So my dad was in the military when he was younger, and he had a saying that was, proper planning prevents poor performance. And so he kind of preached that to me over and over and over again. And so he was always telling me to have a plan. That's not great advice for me. I know he was trying to help, but it's not great advice. And so we had a little bit of conflict. And the other one is that green one called quick start. I'm a let's just go for it, build the plane on the way down kind of guy. My dad spots all the stuff that could go wrong, all the stuff I could break, how I am going to fall out of that tree if I build that tree house myself, those kinds of things. And again, that can cause a little bit of conflict. The amazing thing is, though, if you understand the differences between yourself and your child, you can start to minimize those. And then to the next step, if you can appreciate those differences and help your child lean into the strengths, that's where really the magic happens, right? Praise them for the fact that they are different in whatever that strength is that they're using. So, what are some other ways that we can help our kids collaborate effectively? Help them find mentors or coaches or tutors that do things in their way. So my wife and I have been trying to help our daughter on her running form and try to make it a little bit better so she can be faster and do faster cuts and that kind of stuff. We were getting nowhere. We took her to a speed and agility coach, and he speaks her language. Her form is fantastic now, and she's way faster. Sometimes you just need that other person that communicates it in a different way. Help these kids find ways to work with their strengths. Whether you're a 3287, 8822, somewhere in between, as we've talked about, all of those are strengths. And so help them lean into them to get the stuff done that's in front of them. Other things, right? Consider the MOs of the people around you, whether it's, other kids in their class, kids on your team and your study group, because if you know what their strengths are, you can use those differing strengths to your advantage, and you can kind of shortcut or kind of cut off some of those areas where there would be a little bit of friction. And the last one is, right, respect the approaches of everybody in the family. Just because I'm the dad and my daughter is my daughter doesn't mean that my way is always right. For her, sometimes the way that she does things is way better for her. And dad's way is not the best way, or mom's way is not better than her way, or something like that. And even mom's way isn't always better than dad's way, and vice versa. So however the folks in your life get stuff done, that's amazing. And not only respect it, but celebrate it, because that's part of what the magic that's inside of them. That's part of what makes them who they are. So, when you're around kids, when you have kids, of course, you're going to worry about things like school or the future. And so here are a couple of other ways that you can begin to use your Kolbe strengths or their Kolbe strengths to help with that. Let's take school as an example. This child on the left here, that 9832, if they're in in the kind of the traditional school sense where you're kind of sitting in desks in a row, and, we have, you do history in this one, and then you do math, and then you do science, and they have that laid out. The kind of the traditional school system is structured for these kinds of kids. That's an amazing kind of environment for them. For that child that's, let's say, a 2287, can they kind of suck it up and power through that type of system? Absolutely, they can. However, maybe you want to take a look at a different type of educational system, something like a Montessori, or maybe something that flows a little bit more, where they get to move around, work with their hands. It's not quite as structured. Regardless of what your Kolbe strengths are, You absolutely can be successful. You just got to figure out how to do it in your own way. And us as the grown-ups, we have to help our kids unleash those strengths and use them and listen to them when they're showing us some of those stressors. So that's talking about school. And of course, as parents, we think about this stuff, but we also think about, okay, what about when my child grows up, right? What are they going to be when they become a grown up and they're finally off my payroll? Regardless of the path that they pick, whether it's in the skilled trades, they decide to go into some form of business, they decide to be a doctor or a lawyer or accountant, whatever it is, your MO, your Colby results do not dictate whether or not you can be successful. What it tells you is it gives you a roadmap for how to be successful. So Christine, who's on the call, she's a 6772. She has a son that I think has a 8 in implementer, if I'm not mistaken, Christine, right?
That is correct. He's a 4358.
And then remind us what kind of business he started, Christine.
He is a general contractor.
So if you need someone to build something amazing at your house, Christine's son is the guy, right? Get in touch with him. He can do that. He's working in the skilled trades. He's using those amazing talents, even though he has what was his MO again?
4358.
4358, right? The traditional school system, he struggled in that a little bit because it's not set up for kids like him. Doesn't mean he's not successful as a grown-up. And if you find ways as he's a kid, you can help them work through those things. If you're a kid that's an 8822, awesome, right? School, the traditional school system is kind of built for you, but then you have to go into the grown-up world and figure out how do you use those talents as an 8822. You can use them in business. You can use them in medicine or the law. You can even use them in skilled trades, just in a different way, maybe being a different part of the skilled trades business. So your MO, your Colby results, your child's Colby results do not dictate success. Other things to keep in mind, right? Because I've been telling you, get your child, get yourself to lean into your Colby strengths, whatever they are. Just know they're going to deal with stress. They're going to have to work against their grain or their strengths sometimes. That's part of life, right? We all have to work with challenging things in challenging situations. And that's actually part of what helps us grow. And so when we see folks start to implement this, sometimes what they get wrong is they think, oh, well, I just kind of let my child do whatever. I get to do whatever I want. No, that is absolutely not the case. So David Kolbe, who is our CEO, has joined the call. He is a 2 in follow through. I am a 3 in follow through. David has work that he has to get done. I have work that I have to get done. We don't get a pass just because he's a 2 in follow through and I'm a 3 in follow through. We still have to get that stuff done. And so it's just, again, figuring out how do you use those strengths to come up with hacks and tips and tricks to get done what needs to, just in a way that lines up with our strengths. David, welcome. All right. So since
Hi,
we're
sorry, I was muted. I couldn't say hi right away.
all good. So when you all signed up, you all had a number of questions, and hopefully I answered most of those throughout the content. But we also kind of looked for trends and see, is there one that popped up over and over and over again? And one that popped up consistently was some version of, how do I help my child that's very different than me from, a Colby results perspective? I touched on that a little bit, but we're gonna, between David, myself, Christine, we're gonna tackle this and then we're gonna jump into your questions. So my advice on this is, right, respect the fact that maybe your child has wildly different results, and that's okay. If they do things and you're like, why are they doing it that way? That's them and their superpower. Appreciate that and nurture it. Give them a little bit more, get them to lean into a little bit more. David, what else would you say about this?
Well, some of what I'm gonna say is probably just re-emphasizing things you've already said. One of them is take the time to step outside of yourself. It's really easy for us to kind of fall back on the way we do things. And when we see our kid do things the way we do things, we praise them for that and we direct them like that. So, for me as an initiating fact finder, could be all about doing some research or asking great questions or With my preventive follow through, it could be pushing, my kids toward, taking shortcuts and being willing to start things new, even though you haven't finished everything else. Step back from that and really take the time to see your child, or your grandchild, your whatever the child relationship is that you're working with. Maybe you're a teacher, um, and it's one of those things that's so easy to think about, but it's hard in the moment to do all the times, because we all do get busy, and we fall into our usual patterns. But then also, when you know what that kid's MO is and you see them operating in their strength, recognize that, call it out, praise them for it. Don't just praise them for the results that they get, but praise them for, wow, I see you really leaning into your fill in the blank. And that's awesome. I love that. Um, Look for ways, and this is also one of those things that's easy to know, but sometimes harder to do. Look for other people who can be great mentors for your kid, because sometimes maybe it's not you. The best mentor is somebody who does things in a way that's very similar to the child. So they can say, wow, my experience as an initiating, so and so quick start is, this is a great approach. If that works for your kid, then find those people to match up. And then the last one is something that I joined a little late, but I heard you talking about this, Eric. Um, it really is not just recognizing, but celebrating the differences. So, and celebrating it and getting the kids to use them in a way that is helpful for the entire family. Um, we sometimes underestimate how much kids are ready to do. But let's say, I'll use myself, counteract, follow through. So I'm not the plan system organized person. If I'm working with my kid and one of my kids is initiating follow through, um, from an early age, you can have that kid do real roles for the family where they're using that follow through talent, planning a trip. Now, you don't take they're 8 and you have them plan the entire trip to Europe or something. That's silly. But you can have them plan little things and do smaller steps. Hey, we're gonna go camping this weekend. Will you do the research or make the plan, again, whatever that kid's strengths are. They really appreciate getting to, doing the actual stuff. And they know kids can tell the difference when you're patronizing them and giving them little projects that don't matter versus giving them things that do matter. Um, I saw a question pop up there that I will just answer, if that's okay, Eric and Christine. What age for the Kolbe Y? It's really about a fourth grade reading level, fourth or maybe fifth grade reading level. So it's less about the age than when your kid is ready for it.
Perfect. And so now you've had some questions coming in. I've seen the chat going, but we really want to open it up to all of your questions. So you have 3 experts on the call. We are absolutely here to help you, and we would love to. So chat your questions into the chat, and we'll go for it.
Well, let's start with a question from a little earlier that was from Esther Lott. And she says, I drive my daughter crazy because she needs plans and I never have one. I'm letting her plan now and now that she's getting older, but I still drive her crazy. Any ideas to help us figure this out and to keep being me while validating her?
All right, I'll jump in on this one. Not that I want to take all the questions from this, Eric and Christine. You guys can jump in too. It builds a little bit on what I was just saying, and it sounds like you're already doing that, Esther, where you have, I think you said it was your daughter. You have your daughter do some of the actual plans for you. Some of it is just the way you treat it. And this is whether you're dealing with a kid or a grown-up, we have our differences. And especially with a kid, when the kid understands that you actually truly value who they are, um, makes it a little easier when those frustrations pop up. But it's a two-way street. You should help your kid, and this is, at different stages in relationships with parents and kids. This can be trickier, but get your daughter to actually see and appreciate your difference. So that um, in this case, counteract follow through. If that's where the difference is, she's an initiating follow through, your counteract. Um, you've got this great ability to pivot, and you don't have to finish everything and only do what's planned. And in life, things pop up, plans go awry, or something breaks, and it's just jump in and change and pivot and do things. And when your kid sees and kind of appreciates that, I think it'll help with that difference. And it's okay to point it out. Sometimes it's awkward because it feels like you're patting yourself on the back. So if there's somebody else who can help point it out, another person in that dynamic, like with my wife, there are times where she will point out to my kids like, oh my gosh. And it isn't even necessarily saying to the kids like, oh, do you see what dad just did? It's in front of them acknowledging that I did something, and it's very different from her strength and how great that is.
And I'll just add a little bit there. Esther, if your daughter's the one that needs the plans and you're a little bit more flexible, you can have her build some flex time into her plan where, you know what, for this 30 minutes, we don't know what we're going to do. We're going to figure that piece out. Rest of the day is planned, but this 30 minutes is kind of open and we're going to go find a cool restaurant or something like that. Christine, what else do we have for questions coming in?
So Maya asks, do you recommend doing the test for kids with ADHD early on or wait until they're older, given that their executive functions are delayed compared to other kids?
So I think this is similar to the, answering by reading level rather than age. So I think that you're probably the best judge of when your kid is ready to do it. I think most kids with ADD, ADHD, they can answer the questions because it's not that long. But if you have a kid that truly is, so distracted that they're going to get off track in taking the why, sure, maybe you wait a little longer. They've got the reading ability, but they don't have the focus. But for most kids, the focus, if their mind wanders a little bit in the middle of it, it might slow them down, but they can bring themselves back to finishing it. So I don't think that's a big issue, but absolutely, if you think it's an issue, then just wait a little bit. Yes.
Okay. And then Carolyn asks, what is a recommendation for the best way to validate your adult child, a 21-year-old, an adult child's worth? My son feels pressure from traditional school and has been successful in college but struggles. I'd like to take this one. So let's go back to my son that has the 4358. He struggled in regular school, ended up getting his GED, and then going to trade school and got his general contractor's license. He had to find a way to study that worked for him. And I didn't know his MO when he was younger. I found it out when he was older. And so I wasn't able to give him the advice that he needed until he was an adult. But now he's taken it and he's running with it. He just, if has your adult child taken the Kolbe A index, I would highly recommend it. And then in the index, they'll find out what their strengths are and how to advocate for themselves and how to set themselves up for success. Maybe they have a longer green line or a longer yellow line rather than the red or blue. Then they'll be able to capitalize on those strengths more with the knowledge and understanding of those strengths.
Yeah, definitely. What Christine said, step one is figure out what strengths your child has. And then
Exactly.
from there, as we've already kind of talked about, point out areas where they've been successful or they're using those strengths and say, yes, that's amazing. That's the kind of stuff that you should be leaning into. And where then it kind of starts to snowball. They start to see some success by leaning into the strengths, and that helps to build some of that worth.
All right. And then we have a question from Jean. Has anyone used Kolbe to help guide underserved youth? I can see trust as being an issue, yet wonder if giving an underserved youth a reading on their cognitive strengths that would help them break the cycle of poverty and underachievement. Jean is a 7337, and he sure as heck would love to try. You want
Yeah,
to?
so every year we have something called Strengths Week, and it's normally the first week of May. And what we do is we work with lots of organizations that are underserved, and sometimes it's kid focused, organizations. Sometimes it's, with animals, sometimes it's with adult populations. And I know in a number of the sessions that we've done, we have worked with some underprivileged kids. I don't remember the exact ones off the top of my head, but Christine, you actually run this program, so you
I
probably
do.
know.
I do. And so all across all kinds of areas, we worked with literacy organizations in entire municipalities. We've worked with foster kids, those both in foster care and aging out. We've worked with kids in inner city high schools developed for the homeless and all over the board. And I just want to point out that we have a specialization here at Kolbe just for youth, where we have Kolbe certified consultants all over the world who get additional certification training for working with youth. And you can find more information about that on our website, where you can find a Kolbe Youth certified person in your area to do some work with a particular student or class. That's available to you. I'll put that link in the chat right now.
And I'll add, so this Strengths Week is something that we do at Colby Corp, but also we encourage all of those Colby certified consultants to do as well. So Tony's in the chat and he's mentioning that he's developing a pilot program, and we have scores of those external consultants who do their own outreach to, it's not all youth, but there are a number of youth programs. So yeah, we've done a lot, and the independent consultants have done a lot as well with underprivileged youth. And I'll call out Christine because she's also done a lot of that personally. So we don't need to get in all the details. We'd be here all day, but and she does that through Colby, but also volunteers her own time.
Yes, I
Christine,
absolutely do.
anything else in the chat?
Our
I
school,
see a question. Oh, sorry, Christine, you be the moderator. I won't jump in.
so we have one from Carolyn. Our school systems embracing this so that children can thrive sooner rather than later?
It'd be a lot
Um,
cooler if they did.
Yeah, we want more and more. I will just admit it's been hard to get lasting traction. It tends to be a teacher or a principal at a time, rather than entire school districts. There are exceptions. There have been times when whole school districts have done it. But yeah, we would love for that to happen more and more. And I think the way that will happen is pressure from parents. It's really hard to get school districts to change unless they sense that the demand is really there. So our approach is to do things like this, get more and more people understanding what conation is and how their kids' conative strengths make a difference. And then as they know that, they say, hey, teachers, school districts, principals, you guys need to embrace this. I will say, keep in mind, especially I know some of you on here are teachers, it can be tough on a teacher. If you've got 30 kids in your classroom, it's not a matter of telling that teacher, wow, you've got to customize for 30 different kids so that everything you do fits all of their unique Colby results. That's not practical. Yes, teachers, it helps them when they understand this part of the mind and they can maybe open up rather than being kind of narrow with everything has to be done one way. They can say, hey, here's the project, here are the outcomes that we're looking for, but there's more than one path to get there. So we all need to appreciate what a tough job it is for teachers to help bring out those talents when they're working with so many people, so many kids at once.
And that's a perfect segue into Jessica's quick question. Do we have programs for teachers to become Kolbe certified?
Yes, absolutely. So it all starts with the first step is actually getting certified in Colby, and coming through our 3 or 4 day certification course, because that lays the foundation of understanding and application of an individual's conative strengths and helps you figure out how to get people working together and leveraging their various strengths. Then the next step is what Christine mentioned is our youth certification, because working with kids is different than working with grown-ups. And so it's another specialization or refinement in the application of conative strengths.
All right. And then Sarah says, we have a business advisory council that is a collaboration between business and schools. Would you have a program we could introduce to this group?
Sarah, let's talk offline. We can figure something out.
Yes.
So, Sarah, if you want to message Christine privately your email address, I will make sure to connect with you.
Yeah, we are entrepreneurial and we are mission driven. So when we get questions like, do you have a way for me to connect with kids in education? We will find a way because we don't have to have exactly the program, although we've done it plenty. So it's not like we're starting from scratch. But
Mhm.
Sarah, thanks for your interest and for sending your email.
All right, we are closing in on the hour. So, we want to, like we said, we want to help as many folks as we can, but you spent some time with us today. And so we also want to say thank you. And part of the way we're going to say thank you is Christine is going to choose one of you lucky attendees for our prize.
All right.
She's got the Kolbe random number generator. It is up and running.
Calvin Coleman.
Congrats, Calvin. So, Calvin, you are the lucky winner of two Kolbe A's. That's for the two grown-ups. Two Kolbe Y's. That's for the two kids. And then you're going to have the opportunity to have a 30-minute consultation with one of our master consultants to talk about your results, your children's results, your partner's results, whatever that combination looks like. So, congratulations again, Calvin. Nice work. And for those of you, David, were you?
Yeah, I was going to say one thing. I want to make a pitch. I don't think you've mentioned it. The parent guide is an amazing thing that we've developed that talks to the parent about their kid's result and how to help get the most out of that for the kid. So if you know someone who's taken the Kolbe Y index, you can get the parent guide that connects to that. So I'd really encourage those of you who are interested and have somebody who's taken a Y to get that as well.
I
Christine,
appreciate the
it's
lead in,
on.
David.
What's that?
I appreciate the lead in because
Oh, there it
we
is.
actually do have a special. So if you have not had your child take the Kolbe Y yet, but now you're like, yes, I have to have this, we put together a special bundle for you. So it includes the Kolbe Y, so we can figure out your child's strengths. It includes what's called a stress add-on, which is specific to your child's MO, how to help them manage stress. A test add-on, similar kind of thing, but how to take tests, and then that parent guide that David mentioned. And because you all were nice enough to join us today, we put together a special price for you. So retail on that is $49. But if you go to Kolbe.com/Kolbe Live, you will get that special $39 price. And those are available until August 1st. So go to Kolbe.com/Kolbe Live before August 1st, and you can take advantage of this special. Well, perfect. Well, again, we want to say thank you. It was our pleasure. Hopefully, you got a lot out of it. Hopefully, you have a couple of little nuggets there that you can go and help apply for yourself with your children. We would love to help. So, if you want to connect with us, Kolbe.com is a great place to go, or email us at info@Kolbe.com. But again, we just want to say thank you, everybody. We appreciate it.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.